Alright, so your main tank starts the fight. He's here. And he gets aggro, gets 2 or 3 Sunders up, then everyone starts attacking. Once he gets BA, he's going to shift over here, so the dragon is going to basically be shifted a little bit, his head, but his tail and body is basically in the same spot. When the main tank is here and has BA, the next tank in the transition is going to come over here, and he'll be standing here waiting for the main tank to die, basically just waiting to get aggro. The other tanks, it really depends how you do it. Obsidian Coven, we used to have everybody on this side, and the main tanks would be meleeing with all support classes back here with the exception of rogues. Rogues would have their own groups with a paladin and then a priest doing a prayer of healing. Paladins healing the main tank. They'd be on this side just in case somebody drew aggro. So basically you have your rogue groups over here and you just kill it fast. When you get BA, you run down to this part of the room. And on your way over, make sure you're spamming spells because they're all instant cast. So Frostbolts, Smite, whatever you got, heals, they're all instant, so just keep throwing them at them as you run. Another way to do is basically have your whole raid over here, tanks on the other side, over this end, and then just same deal. You just have some backup healers on the tank. One important thing is you got to make sure on the transitions your tanks are getting heals before the transition. So you have like, I don't know, a druid assigned to top them off and constantly heal them until they become the main tank.
Okay.
Your first trial will probably take like 4 tanks, and then it should be dead, but the goal is going to be around 20% on your first tank, ideally. That'll knock you up around 3 tanks. Other than that, it's a pretty easy battle. Make sure it's all fire and stamina gear, because mana obviously doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, blow up back here. I'd say rogues, if you're having problems with rogue strong aggro, sit them over here by themselves with a priest. This way when they draw aggro, they can bitch amongst themselves that they killed each other. And everyone else on this side. And the main thing is tank transitions. I would put your main tank, have somebody with Defiance, have them start it, then the second tank be someone without Defiance, and have them not have Salvation on, but be fighting for aggro after 2 Sunders. And then that'll be a good start. Then all the other warriors have Salvation, but when the tank 2 ahead of them dies, they drop Salvation. So for example, the main tank is here. He dies. The next tank takes over, and the third tank would drop Salvation and start building, continue to build aggro. And at 20%, no matter what, all tanks are doing execute.
Could you explain more on the positioning of the rest of the raid and healers and the rest of the tanks, like the way you did it with OC?
Yeah, what we did was we would have rogue groups over here, so it'd be a paladin, a priest, and 3 rogues. They would all be on this side, where priest is just standing about here, spamming prayer of healing for the rogues. And when the rogues don't need it, he'll toss a heal to the main tank. The paladins are basically there for backup in the aura, and they're healing the main tank. What we would do is before each fight, we'd throw a warrior in with the rogues to give them battle shout, and then switch the warrior back to their real group. Everyone else is going to be on this side. Warriors get warlocks with them so they can have imps. They're going to be standing over here with the imp out, obviously, somewhere around up here so you can get it in all positions. You got to make sure you stay kind of at the rear, his ass, basically, because otherwise you're going to be catching a cleave. Other than that, your mages and ranged DPS are going to be sitting back here. And your priests and the healers will be in around this range so they can hit the main tank and their casters. The big thing is you have to make sure your healers are coordinated, because when BA goes off, if it's a rogue group, the paladin for that rogue takes over. if it hits a priest over there, and you just got to make sure there's cross-group healings, like they're watching each other, because otherwise you can lose 2 healers in a group and you lose the whole group.
Okay, so what all the casters and stuff, there's no necessarily healer within the caster group, just up here so they can kind of get ranged on either side, like with the tanks, and then with their prayer healing or whatever their spamming healing is.
Basically, you have 2 main groups of people. You've got the main raid force and the rogues, and I guess the main tanks, they're their own thing. You want to set up your main raid force so the healers are in range of the main tank, and then you set up your casters so that they're in range of the healers. So first thing before the fight, you set up your main tanks about here. I'd make sure you can heal to the bottom of the stairs in case there's a missed position. From there, have the priests get range and come in a couple yards just to make sure when they walk over to the other side, like, you got to make sure you can heal me here as well as here. So you set them up that way. It's really not a bad.
And then you set up all the ranged DPS within the range of the priests, and then you should be all right.
Right. Yeah, and to the side, so you're not taking tail whips.
So, and then he should not turn on the raid at all, depending on the transitions.
If you get, I mean, sometimes a warrior will skip out of line. If he does, he has got to throw his shield in and drop salvation and just keep aggro and run to the front. But if all goes well, I mean, we would have it so that he would never, his head would not go from past these 4 tiles. Like, and even then it would just be for a second. It'd be, you know, he's tanked here, main tank gets BA, he's at this tile. Then it goes, the other tank, when the main tank dies, is at this tile. So, I mean, he's not moving much at all.
Okay.
Like, the 4 tile loop is your goal.
Cool.
But you got to make sure the secondary tanks are always topped off. Otherwise, you're going to have a transition where, you know, secondary tanks at 60% health and gets, like, 3-shotted. And you don't have enough time to heal them.
Alright, awesome. I guess that's it then, right?
Yep, that's it.
The tanks and, like, priests and rogues or something to get the upper BRS buff or something.
Really, you only need... The rogues don't really need to get it, but I would get it for them just so they can put on some damage gear. Because what happens is they're going to be overhealed with Prayer of Healing going on, so they don't really have to worry too much about fire res. Like, I'd say 150 for rogues. Everyone else should be in, like, the 200 area because they won't have dedicated healers. And with fire pots, I mean, they won't take much damage. The exception is the main tanks need, like, I run 320 to 330 when I tank this guy. Like, you need full fire res.
Yeah, when I'm usually doing, I get my full fire gear. I have 319 now, so.
Yeah, I mean, for paladins and classes that have mana, it's great to get them in full fire res because that's less healing it takes away. But for rogues who are more, like, their damage is more dependent on their gear since they don't have any mana, like, it's more important that they have the high crit rate. So you get them the UBRS buff and let them take off 2 pieces of fire res.
Alright, cool.
So that should help it out.
That's cool. I'm gonna stop recording the video now. To edit this shit is gonna be huge.
Did you take audio on that, or?
Yeah, I did.
Just remember
I recorded TeamSpeak.